G'day, g'day. Here we are.
Hey, Jono.
How's it going, Ross?
Man, it is going wonderfully. I had a busy day, man. I had a real busy day today. Who we got?
Mark
Mark Mosley.
Mosley. Mark Mosley's
Yeah.
first in. I was just waiting to see who was going to be first in. It is Mark. G'day,
Mark,
mate.
you are the winner tonight. Congratulations. You are the
What's the
uh,
prize?
I don't know. We need to come up with something. We keep talking about it. We need to. Hey, let me
Hmm.
tell you how busy I've been.
Go on.
So you remember when you were here, how
Christo.
look, Christo's on time
Yeah.
this time. When you were here, Bridget, she has a lot going on. She takes care of
Frankie.
the animals and
DJ.
she does
Yeah,
everything.
Bridget's really, really busy. She's got
Well,
her garden is going, it is just flourishing, is it not?
yeah, tell me
All the
about it.
produce that she's pulling out of that garden. I love the photos on Facebook. It's just a fantastic job. The
Yep.
eggplant, I'm really jealous.
Oh
And
man.
and I know she's got the chicken Taj Mahal there,
Yep.
and they're all very, very happy. And all the other animals. You've got some of the animals, don't you?
Let me tell you, that's what I was going to say.
Come on.
Bridget is at a beach right now. She's not
What?
doing anything with animals. You looking at the animal man. I'm the
Hey,
farmer.
Marianne.
Seth and I have to pick up eggs. We have to check the garden. We have to water. I have a list you would not believe. So
Right.
I had to leave, but I had an interview today. I had to leave after the interview to go get this, to go feed a blue jay that Toby rescued, and it's got like this makeshift habitat in his bathroom now. So I had to walk in while this bird dive bombs me, feed the bird, feed the bird wet food,
Yeah.
and it's still like I have to put it in the bird's beak. Like this isn't anyway. So I'm telling you,
You didn't. What are you saying? You didn't chew it and then regurgitate it into the bird's mouth
I
like you
might
should.
as I might as well. I mean, I might as well. I'm doing everything. So anyway,
Uh,
it's been busy,
hey,
but
Marlene.
I did an interview today with History Valley on the Siloam inscription because today marks 143 years to the day that the announcement came forth from Jerusalem from Conrad Schick about a new discovery in Jerusalem. So today was the day.
Today
Anyway,
I didn't know that. Okay.
fun stuff. But I have been looking forward, now that all the animals are fed and everything's done, to talking to you about the 10 words tonight. Are you ready?
Everything is not done. You're still babysitting animals.
I am.
Where are
Well,
they?
I would bring one of the dogs in, but I
Hey,
think
Ben.
Seth might have taken the dogs into his office. He's working.
Dogs plural. You have dogs there in the office.
Well, I
There
have
you go.
Oliver and Jazzy. So, yeah.
All right. At some stage, I want one of them on camera.
Mm.
We're talking about now. What number are we up to? What number is this?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends
Mm.
on how you count. I think this is our sixth show, number 6.
Mm.
But remember, the numbering is different depending on which of the manuscripts you're looking at. Remember, we're looking at 7 manuscripts: the Masoretic text of Exodus and Deuteronomy,
Mm-hmm.
the Samaritan Pentateuch, Exodus and Deuteronomy. We're looking at the Nash Papyrus, the All Souls Deuteronomy, and our favorite.
Hey, Patty.
Hey, Patty. And our favorite, the Shapira manuscript,
That's right.
which has a different reading in tonight's. But we're not going to get to that yet, are we?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay.
Because the first thing we have to deal with, Ross, with this particular commandment is an age-old discussion. Does it say, "Thou shalt not kill," or "Thou shalt not murder"? Because those are two different things.
Yeah.
And g'day to Dave too, Patty. Say g'day to Dave. There he is.
There he is.
I'm not so busy though. You can join us. There, Dave.
Right. Good deal.
Oregon, how you going? Yeah, Karen. Awesome. All right. So, thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not murder. There's a difference in definition. It's a significant difference, and we need to know which one
Let-
it is.
Let's take a poll right now, just for fun. There is no wrong answer.
Mm.
Now, think about this. I want you to don't type it yet unless you already did. But here's the thing. So the question comes down to this. In Hebrew, it says lo tirtzach. Lo tirtzach. Now, the question is, what does tirtzach mean? Because the tav on the front, in fact, let me pull that up, Jono, while we're talking about this. This is, look, this is, now notice I put no murder. Lo tirtzach, murder. But does it really mean murder, or did I get this wrong? If you look over here at Exodus, Deuteronomy, Masoretic text, the
Hmm.
Samaritan Pentateuch of Exodus and Deuteronomy, All Souls Deuteronomy, Nash Papyrus, all of those read lo tirtzach. Now, the root word that we're dealing with here, ratzak, resh, sadi, het,
Mm.
that's the question we have. I'm going to pull that off the screen. Now, look, now notice Shapira has a little bit more verbiage here.
Now he's got quite a lot. The only difference I can see is Exodus Deuteronomy have a samek at the end, indicating that's the end of that. But yeah, it seems to be identical in everybody except for the Moses scroll. Has a great more detail there, and we will be going into some
Yeah.
explanation as to what that all is. G'day, Pam and Jeffrey. Yes, Jeffrey, you are not the first in still, but you're pretty much on
That's
time.
okay. That's okay.
That's all
All
right.
right. So your question is here. Here's our question.
Mm.
And I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the problem is. I know you know it, but some of our viewers may want to hear this. So question becomes, a lot of times in the earlier English translations, it says thou shalt not kill. And then you get into all sorts of ethical issues, and you
Hmm.
have people marching with signs outside of they're about to kill a convicted murderer, and you have people
Hmm.
say, yeah, but the Bible says don't kill. And then you have other people who are stepping up and saying, yeah, but there are capital offenses in the Torah that
Hmm.
that for these offenses, and I have all those listed, by the way, but there are
Hey, Ronnie.
reasons, they say,
Hmm.
that somebody deserves to get, bumped on the head. So is it kill or murder? So let's just let
Let's
people
take a
play.
poll. G'day, Stephen. So everyone type which one you think it is. Is it kill or murder? We're going to take a poll right now. Put it in the comments section.
Now, while they're doing that, we're not going to give it away yet because we're going to get into some there. By the way, this word tirtzach, the tav on the front is you. In other words, lo, no, you is the tav, no, you shall, and then you have ratzak.
Hmm.
So, but again, early in these English translations, they said, well, because of the capital offenses, you can't, you can't say don't kill, because there are times where you have to kill,
Hmm.
and it's commanded, right?
Hmm.
So that's the question today. Now, in American law and in most Western society, we differentiate manslaughter, unintentional, intentional, premeditated. There are all sorts of different degrees. So
Mm.
that's really what it comes down to. And I think most people, when they say murder or wrongfully kill, as Patty put up, I think
Mm.
most people think of the idea that that means a premeditated taking the life of someone who is innocent. To
Mm.
Pat's
Mm.
point, wrongfully killing. In other
Mm.
words, if it's somebody who's violated a capital offense, you can kill them, right?
Mm.
That's the understanding.
So this is Marianne makes a point: kill, murder, both end in taking life, ending the God-given breath of life. That's a good point as well. So everyone pretty much put murder. Everyone did put murder. So and I would agree with them because the thing is, Ross, if God is saying you shall not murder, then what that does is divinely impart value to the individual. And if the individual has value, then you have value and I have value. If somebody wants to take my life and break that commandment, they want to murder me, well, it's my duty to then defend myself because I have God-given value, right? I have
Yeah,
intrinsic value given by the divine. I have the duty and the right. I have the right to defend myself. In doing so, it may be to put an end to the person who's trying to do me harm.
yeah,
Otherwise, if we view it as you shall not kill, well, someone wants to break the commandment and end my life. Well, I just have to let them.
right.
It doesn't follow logically.
Well, I like something that you said there when you talk about taking. If you think about the three, last week we talked about the big three, and they're listed in different orders in various ancient documents. So you have
Mm.
kill or murder, steal, and adultery.
Mm.
And all three of those, in a way, can be associated with taking something that does not belong to you.
Mm.
Now, I think a lot of people have spent a lot of time trying to think about, well, how do we connect the dots to these words? You know, a lot of people have said, well, anciently you had two tablets, and on one tablet you have the obligations that we owe to God. And then the other tablet, we have obligations that govern our behavior towards our fellow man. And there's nowhere in the text that it says that, but generally, you know, that's one of the things that people say. So,
Mm-hmm.
what if this is one way to group the big three that they have in some way, though it's not necessary to sign on for this view, but I'm just wondering, you're taking a life, it's not yours to take. You are, unless it is a prohibition which is accompanied by a capital offense or a capital punishment where God says, you know, you need to take this person's life because they violated this, or this. So those are some questions going into this.
Mm.
Do they have to do with a greater offense, meaning who are you to take a life, a wife, or property that doesn't belong to you? I don't know,
Mm.
just a thought.
Ben Michael asked the question, what about blessings and the curses that are associated? So I assume that you're asking in regards to the Moses scroll, because of course the Torah
Yeah,
doesn't have the blessings. It doesn't have blessed be the one. So I'll just quickly read you that blessing that's missing from our
yeah,
biblical text.
that's a good question.
It's a good question, and it is interesting because it reads this way in the Moses scroll. This is the associated blessing, because as Ben Michael knows, the 10 words, and there are 10 in the Moses scroll, each has a corresponding blessing and a curse. Not so in our biblical text. So it says, "Blessed is the man who does not take vengeance and does not hold a grudge against his brother's soul,"
Mm.
and they will respond, "Amen." So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the
What's the
Shapira.
curse? What's the curse?
The curse is on a different page, and it says, "Cursed is the man who..." Where are we now? Oh, who hates his brother in his heart. No, that's not that one. No, I've got to go back.
Yeah, back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You see it? I'm grabbing something off my bookshelf here, Jonah. I didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I see.
Cursed is the one who strikes his neighbor in secret.
Ah,
And all the people, they will respond and they'll say, "Amen."
amen.
This is the man who strikes his neighbor in secret.
So
Okay.
those are associated with Shapira's version, or the Shapira manuscript strips
Mm.
version of Lo Tirtzach, because Shapira says Lo Tirtzach, the soul of his brother, right? Does it say
Mm.
brother or
Mm.
neighbor? Brother.
It says brother in the commandment, and it says neighbor in the curses. So who strikes
Very
his neighbor?
interesting.
So there's an
And then
extension there, yeah.
And then, of course, like all of the 10 words in the Shapira manuscript, they end in Ani Elohim Elohecha.
Mm-hmm. There's that silence, yeah.
Anohi Elohim Elohecha. I am Elohim, your Elohim.
Mm.
So that's a good question. Now, when I went into this study, as I was translating, for instance, when I did the study on the 10 words, I had in my mind what we just put before all the people, and that is that this commandment, if you will, this word is don't murder, or you shall not murder, and not you shall not kill. I
Mm.
differentiated in my mind this commandment from those other phrases or those other causes or whatever in the Hebrew Bible where that was demanded, that we take the life of someone who committed certain offenses. So I think it would be really good if we kind of work through some of these texts and see how they're translated. Maybe we can use different translations or whatever, but
Sure.
um,
What do
I,
you got?
well, the first thing is if we look at Exodus 20 and 13 and Deuteronomy 5:17 in the canonical text, that's what we're dealing with, Lo Tirtzach. So if you do a search for the phrase Lo Tirtzach, it doesn't appear in that form anywhere else in the Hebrew Bible. But tirtzach and words associated with it appear 42 times. The first example I want to go to is, by the way, it's only in the Pentateuch. This phrase only appears in the 10 words
Mm.
and in Numbers
That's fine.
35 and a couple of
35.
others. Go to Numbers 35. Now let's look.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, I just want to stress that the word here that's going to be translated, depending on your translation, but the
Mm-hmm.
word used here is the root word ratzak.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here we go. The first verse we'll look at is chapter 35 and verse 6.
Oh, okay. The towns that you assign to the Levites shall comprise the 6 cities of refuge, so that you are to designate for towns. Oh, I see. So designate for manslayers to
Manslayer.
flee to. To flee to which you shall add 42 towns. A manslayer. So if someone accidentally kills someone, I think the example is if he's out in the woods chopping wood and the axe handle flies off and hits his mate in the head and knocks him off, he can flee to a town. Now, what do you make of that? That's a different discussion. Actually, I've given this a lot of thought. An accidental manslaying,
Well,
and then all of a sudden you've got to pack up and leave and go elsewhere.
yeah, and so what we get in the priestly material in the Bible is that according to the priestly writer, there is a Goel Hadam, a redeemer, or a how do they say that? A blood. I forget how the English translate it. Golly, I'll find the word in a minute, but it's basically a redeemer of the blood. So in other words, if someone accidentally dies, or if there is a death, the one who is thought to have committed the perpetrator, whether incidental or accidental or on purpose, there are these cities that they can go to, according to the Hebrew Bible,
cities of
until a
refuge.
trial can be held and you can determine whether or not what the case is.
Or until the high priest of that day dies, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly,
that's
and
another thing. Yeah,
apparently it's okay to go home and they won't pursue you anymore.
yeah.
It's
Let little Jimmy out.
Yeah, it's very curious because I mean, if you accidentally, God forbid, cause someone else's death, all of a sudden the race is on for you to get to the nearest city of refuge. Now, if that happened today, I mean that wouldn't be justice. That wouldn't be on. Perhaps there would be a trial, and it would be brought out that. So, for example, there's this case at the moment, Daniel Penny, I think, in the subway that allegedly protected everyone on the train from this person who was saying that he was going to kill people on the train. He didn't care. He's prepared to go to jail for life and da 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 da. And so he put him in a stranglehold, a chokehold, just to pass him out. And unfortunately for all involved, caused the death of this individual who was crazed on the train. Back in the day, then, according to this, Daniel Penny would then have to, make haste to the nearest city of refuge in order not to be killed himself by the kin, perhaps.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite seem to pass muster.
Well,
Anyway.
let's keep going. 35 has quite a few of these. So let's just I just want to hit the phrases. Now I have the Koran Hebrew Bible out. By the way, I posted a link so people could find this Bible, and it's sold out. I must be like Oprah Winfrey. You know how when she mentions the book, everybody buys it?
Very good.
Anyway, so Numbers 35, and we just read 6. Look down at verse 11. You shall appoint you cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the slayer who kills any person unawares may flee thither. I like that word, thither, towards there.
There we
Now,
go.
notice this is not a premeditated murder. This is an unintentional, and this is one of the points I wanted to bring up. So verse 12, they shall be to you for cities of refuge from the avenger, that the manslayer die not until he stand before the congregation in judgment. Look down at verse 16. If he smite him with an instrument of iron so that he die, he's a murderer. Now we got a different word, Jono. You ready? The
Then the murderer must
murderer.
be put to death.
The
Yeah.
murderer shall be put to death. And if he smite him by hand with a stone whereby he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. Or if he smite him with a hand weapon of wood whereby he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. The revenger of blood himself shall not, or shall slay the murderer. When he meets him, he shall slay him. And it goes on, and there are like 12 more references. Now, notice that this says murder, 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 murder. Guess what the Hebrew says? The same
word.
Hebrew word that was mentioned above when it talks about the unintentional slaying. So I wanted to make this point. Now, it goes on. We have quite a few more verses we can go through. But this idea, I just read tonight. I did a little Google search. I wanted to find out just to see what Dr. Google said. Murder or kill, the Hebrew ratzak. And the first thing on the list said, due to an improper translation of the Hebrew in the commandment actually means murder. It's a different Hebrew word. Jono, it's not a different Hebrew word. Ratzak can be used for what we would interpret through context as the way we understand murder, but it is the same Hebrew word as that which is, if you're in the field with little Jimmy and the axe head flies off and cracks somebody in the head and they die. So
poor little Jimmy. So what you're saying is that it's determined by other texts by its context, and it's not so clear in the 10 words itself.
It seems to be that at times the first thing I would say is whatever ratzak means, and it seems to be I use kill, but I allow the context to determine when kill is authorized in the Hebrew text, whether that's through a priestly writer or whatever. I'm not getting into that. My point is that kill is the right word. You can look it up, and ratzak is typically translated in, say, if you go to Brown Driver Briggs, or if you go to, I have what's called halot. See if I can get that. The Hebrew Aramaic Lexicon of the Old Testament, Volume 3. This is quite a good dictionary. And what you usually get is kill, comma, murder, comma, slay. The idea is that you're taking a life. Now we can get into the ethical and, well, the Bible also says you should kill somebody if they do the following things, but I'm going to ask the question, what word is used there? Because what we're trying to get at is, what are we told? Lo tirtzak. Well, now we've got a difficulty, because tirtzak, to not kill, here it gives examples where sometimes it means a manslayer, sometimes it seems to suggest someone who premeditated and killed. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me give you an example. One text that I'd like to talk about, and you can jump in anytime, but one text that hit me is Leviticus chapter 20. And I'm going to give you, let's see how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crimes, according to Leviticus 20, that it seems like a person is to be put to death. And we want to know what the word is, but let's stick with the English first. Look at Leviticus 20 and verse 2 and tell me what crime brings death.
Verse 2, and it says, say further to the Israelite people, among anyone among the Israelites or among the strangers residing in Israel who gives any of his offspring to Molech shall be put to death. The people of the land shall pelt him with stones. So Yeah,
There you
offering
go.
your children to Molech.
Okay, you don't want to do that. You don't want
Don't
to
want to
do
be
that,
doing that.
and that's not very common today, I wouldn't think. But although I did just read where some young mother, it was a newspaper article that came up in my feed, and it just made me nauseous,
Mm,
especially after seeing Bridget's list of how much trouble she put to taking care of a bird.
mm,
This woman decided that she was going to go on vacation. She left a 16-month-old baby alone for more than 2 weeks, I think, while she just went on vacation. She came back and the child was unresponsive. And the child died, as we might expect. And I just thought, how sick and depraved. Now, there may be something. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, I mean, something is obviously off on someone who would let
clearly.
a child, but still,
But
you know
that's a good example that you bring up because such a person, clearly not right in the head, goes away. But were they actually thinking, "I'm just going to let that child die. I'm not
yeah,
interested in the child. I want to go on a vacation," or were they actually thinking that, the child won't enjoy this, but I'll when
yeah,
I get back,
obviously mental illness. I don't know.
obviously mental illness. Now, offering a child to Molech is
Yeah,
a
that's
different thing.
different.
That's a
Yeah,
premeditated. I'm going to sacrifice my child for the benefit of myself.
right.
Somehow, I will gain favor from this idolatrous god Molech if I sacrifice my child.
That's right.
Um, in in yeah, I mean, there
Anyway,
could be some
just
parallels drawn today, which we won't get into right now. But
look at verse 9 of chapter. This is, by the way, this piece of legislation in Leviticus 20 is a series of reasons to put someone to death. Now we're going to go through them first.
if anyone
Uh,
insults his father or his mother, he shall be put to death.
yeah,
He has insulted his father and his mother, his blood guilt is upon him.
yeah, there you go. That's another one. You don't
Mm.
want to do that. Verse 10, look at the next verse.
If a man commits adultery with a married woman, which is adultery, committing
Yeah,
adultery with another man's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. So adultery.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then verse 13.
13, if a man lies with a male as one lies with a woman, the two of them have done an abominable thing, they shall be put to death. Their blood guilt is upon them.
That's right. And then verse 15.
15, if a man has carnal relations with a beast, he shall be put to death, and you shall kill the beast. That's, is that,
I, that's crazy. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
I mean
okay.
that's strange. But anyway,
Mm,
verse 20. No,
mm,
no. I'm sorry. Verse 27 is the next one.
let us turn the page. 27, a man or a woman who has a ghost or familiar spirit shall be put to death. They shall be pelted with stones. Their blood guilt shall be upon them.
Now, remember when we started, one of the things that people say is Tirtzak can't mean just simply kill, because we have certain crimes that God says you got to put this person to death when they do these things. We just
Mm,
went through a host of them in Leviticus 20. Not that that's the only place, but that's one of the places that really list them off. And the thing about all of these cases is that none of them use the word ratzak.
mm,
So I'm just saying it's not a true equivalency. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, if somebody says, well, lo tirtzak can't mean put someone to death because God says to put someone to death, whereas here in Leviticus 20 we have all these cases and so forth. So it is interesting to me, and I'm interested in your take on that, because really what it says, it uses the Hebrew um, mut,
mm,
mut yamut, dying, you shall cause them to die.
mm.
And it doesn't. Now, in some cases, it says pelt them with stones, or whatever the means whereby you cause them death is specified. At
Mm.
others, the text doesn't spell it out so clearly.
So your question more specifically, if you can just refine that.
My question specifically is, it's not really, it's more of a comment that people who say lo tirtzak should be translated murder
Mm.
because the Hebrew word tirtzak means murder, whereas we just saw that that's not necessarily the case. Tirtzak can mean different. It can mean manslaughter. It can mean, unintentional. It doesn't mean intentional. So the first comment, if I can clarify what I just confused myself on or confused others on, is that lo tirtzak does not mean you shall not murder, i.e., take an innocent person's life, but you can do these other things, because tirtzak is not the word used like in Leviticus 20. Does that make any sense? It makes sense in my head.
Mm.
They're different words.
Yeah.
They're different
Okay,
words.
I'm with you.
So the first comment, again, is that tirtzak is used for what we would call murder, but it's also used for killing unintentionally. Let's leave it at that. That's the first step. Would you agree with that based on what we read?
I would agree with that, and I just want to go to a discussion that's being had in the comments section, because Ronnie asked a really good question, and
Okay.
it's beside the point, but it should be addressed. He said, "Do you think that a person who has mental illness is responsible for their actions?" I would say yes, they are, because if they're not, then who is? Someone has to be responsible for the actions, and is not every criminal, particularly when it comes to killing, murdering, are they? Is there not, something wrong in the
Yeah.
way that they've processed the information, causing their actions? And maybe more so than others, and maybe they're more affected than others by societal upbringing, things that have happened and whatnot. But someone needs to be responsible, and if it's not the individual, then who? And once we have a judicial system that says, well, we're going to be more lenient upon you because we think that you've we've somehow magically measured the amount of mental disorder going on in your head. Is that not where every criminal is going to gravitate for a defense? And isn't that what we're seeing? And isn't
Yeah.
that what we're seeing? Mentally unwell people that are a danger to society going back out onto the streets and killing again, or being violent again. Someone, not every system is perfect, but each individual has to be responsible for their own sin, as it says in Ezekiel chapter 18, regardless of uh,
The defense.
yeah. So I would say absolutely, they need to be, in order for us to have a system that works as well as possible. Because if we make exceptions, then we end up with what we have today, and it's just not working, Ross.
Yeah, I was going to add one thing. I see Jeffrey put up a Hebrew phrase. Someone must have been asking about Genesis chapter 4, and the root word here is harag. It's I believe it typically is translated as slay. So again, there are several different words that are used for the taking of life, whether it be kill, murder. I think we get all of these shades of meaning, and I don't mean to be straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel here on this idea of low tiered sock, but I just want to make the point. Now, what do I think? We'll get into what do I think the commandment is really saying. Given all the evidence, we'll get to that. But I think that it's important to show that we do have different Hebrew words here. But what is not true, I'm going to make one more try to clear this up. What is not true is what people say, that the word in the commandment, I'm using the commandment as most people call it, the word in the commandment is not a different Hebrew word than that which is used for manslaughter or unintentional death, you see. It's the same Hebrew word. All right. So that was the main point that I wanted to think about. I wanted to read one more in Deuteronomy 4. Deuteronomy 4. Again, it has to do with these sanctuary cities, as we call them. And Deuteronomy 4 says, third person, then Moses set apart 3 cities, verse 41, on this side of the Jordan, toward the sun rising, that the slayer might flee there who should kill his neighbor unawares, and hated him not in times past, and that fleeing unto one of those cities he might live. And then it lists the cities. So again, this is the word there used is tied to the same tirtzak. It's ratzak is the same root word. So that's the main point I wanted to make on that. Now, again, we have 42 examples of this particular Hebrew word used throughout the Hebrew Bible.
42.
42 times the root word ratzak is used.
So I want to come back to that. Just to clarify for Ronnie, just on the previous point, Ronnie says he's referring to one who was developmentally challenged. Yeah, okay. So that's, I mean, if that's obviously the case, there still has to be a responsibility taken, or a responsible society has to deal with someone who might be of danger to themselves and to others. Clearly, something has to be done. And in any case, you said 42 times. Now, I'm just curious, Ross, in all the times that word is used it used in conjunction with the soul to kill someone in their soul? Do we have nefesh?
Well, because of something you told me in a conversation we had, I searched my Bible program to find the word ratzak and soul in one verse, or anywhere, and I did find one. It's in Deuteronomy 22, verse 26. Deuteronomy 22.
26, only one you could
And
find.
only one that I found, and I'm interested if anyone else might find another one, but that's what I found. So I think it starts, if you want to read in context, let me read verse 23 first, just to set the context. If a girl that's a virgin be betrothed to a husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, you shall bring them both out to the gate of that city. You shall stone them with stones, Jono, that they die. The girl, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he has humbled his neighbor's wife. So you shall put away evil from among you. So if a man takes a girl and basically forces himself on her, and she doesn't scream and they're in the city, she gets killed too. All right. Now, verse 25. Yeah, I got to keep reading, John. Verse 25. But if a man find a betrothed girl in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then only the man that lay with her shall die. But to the girl you shall do nothing. There is in the girl no sin worthy of death. For as when a man rises against his neighbor and slays him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed maiden cried out, but there was none to save her. So the lesson is, if a woman is being raped, I can see it in your eyes. You're thinking about something. You might all just skip it. But think, if she doesn't scream and it's in the city, she's got to die too. But in the field, if she does scream, there was no one to hear her anyway, so she's off the.
There was no one to hear anyway. So if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to see it, doesn't make a sound. So if she claims that she screamed out in the country, but no one was there to hear it, then her word is good enough and she shall not die. But if he puts his hand over her mouth and rapes her in the city, then she's going to die as well, even though she's betrothed to another.
I don't know. That's a difficult text. Yeah,
we could talk about that for a long time.
Yeah, probably so. Probably shouldn't though. So, but this idea, now in verse 26, let me pull up my Hebrew here and check this out, because this is the only passage I found that has both the word kill, ratzak,
and soul,
and
nefesh.
nefesh. Yeah, Deuteronomy 22, verse 26. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it says utsahu, urtsahu. There's our ratzak, nephesh. Now it's translated. Let's see. Um, let's see what it says. And murders a soul or murders a person. So what happens is, because nephesh seems to be hard to translate in this place, it's left out of most translations. So
Mm,
he will rise a man upon his neighbor and kill his soul, basically. Thus, this matter, or so is this case.
mm,
Very strange, but that by the way, as difficult as that is to translate, you'll see why no one really translates it properly. Because how do you translate nephesh? Nephesh is translated most often in English as soul,
mm,
but it can mean a life, a being, a person. It represents the totality of one's being, and not this Greco-Roman idea of a soul.
mm,
So one more point, and then I'm going to toss it to you, and you're going to tell me something about this soul thing.
mm,
Whenever a lot of people think in this Greco thinking, they say a person like Ross is a a body, a soul, and a spirit.
right.
But that's not true in the
Mm,
Bible. Even in the beginning, when God creates Adam, He makes it a body, and He
mm.
breathes into this body a breath or a spirit, a ruach, and that thing with body and spirit equals a
Breath
soul.
and
Equals
body
soul.
equal. So a living entity is a soul, is a nefesh.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
right.
fair?
Yeah,
And
and
that
so
seems consistent through the Tanakh. Is that
it
fair?
is. It is.
Mm,
In fact, the Bible talks about, get this, a dead soul. Here's an example. The man who sins, the soul that sins, says
mm,
Ezekiel, shall die. So you have this
mm,
idea of a dead soul. Now, a lot of people believe in immortality of the soul, but that's just a made up
mm, mm.
doctrine. I don't care who said it, it's not biblical. So the idea
G'day,
is
Daniel.
body plus spirit or body plus breath equals a living being, a
Mm,
nefesh chaya. You take away the breath long enough, you're dead. Now,
and
do
there it is.
you know of anything in antiquity that would put nefesh with ratzak? In other words, don't take the life or the being. Is there anything?
This is exactly where we find ourselves is with the Moses scroll, and as we mentioned earlier, it says in the Moses scroll, "Do not." The commandment is well. Now I've lost it. Where is it? What does it say, Ross? I'm going to go through.
Says, I'm going to open up and make sure I read it from the authorized version.
You
Uh,
shall not kill the soul of your brother. I am Elohim, your Elohim. EC6. You shall not kill the soul of your brother. As I mentioned last week when we were talking about this, we were talking about the order of the big three.
yep,
And I mentioned that in this book, The Ten Commandments, in recent research from '67, I think it was, that Karl Heinz Rabast made a list in what he thought might have been originally a collection of 12 commandments, but in this particular one, you shall not kill a man in his soul. Very, very curious. And I had forgotten. I was going to send you the footnotes of that with the details. I've done that now because I remembered this morning when we were talking just before we got on air. So maybe we can look that up and we'll find out what his reasoning for that was, because it's thoroughly curious as to why he would include that when you point out those two words appear in a verse only once, as far as you can see, in Deuteronomy chapter 22. Um, Now, the interesting thing about this one is that we have "You shall not kill the soul of your brother." Um, can I talk about just some verses that relate to this, Ross?
sure, absolutely.
If we go to Exodus chapter now, just to remind everyone, here we are on Mount Horeb. Moses is, taking the tablets up there. God is writing what He's already spoken to everybody audibly. This is the most significant point in history in Israel, which is carried on from here. It serves as the springboard for the entire Bible, right here and now. And if this is the accurate and original, the Moses scroll, then what has happened is God has just said to everybody, these are the 10 words, and he's included, of course, kicked off with the prohibition of idolatry, no idolatry. And then eventually we're down to, you shall not kill the soul of your brother. I am Elohim, your Elohim. Going from the Moses scroll back to the Pentateuch, and we open up to Exodus chapter 32, verse 27, Ross. Let's go there.
Exodus 32:27.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In fact, we could even, just to give it some context, this is, of course, Moses comes down, the people are out of control. Aaron had let them get out of control. And what was happening was the whole golden calf incident. And verse 27 says that Moses said, who is on the Lord's side? And look, those who are on the Lord's side come here, and all the Levites rallied to him, which kind of gives you an indication who was responsible for this text. And he said to them, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, each of you put a sword on your thigh, go back and forth from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay brother, neighbor, and kin. And the Levites did as Moses had bidden, and some 3,000 of the people fell that day. And Moses said, dedicate yourselves to the Lord this day, for each of you has been against son and brother, right? That he may bestow a blessing upon you today. So what we're to understand, if the Moses scroll is the accurate 10 words, and we certainly have reason to believe that it is, then what has happened is because they broke the first commandment, to correct that, they should then break this commandment, you shall not kill the soul of your brother. But because they did kill the soul of their brother, then they may incur a blessing, which again is absolutely counter the 10 words, as we read before, that there is a blessing to not killing the soul of your brother. Very, very confusing. That's not the only incident that appears in the Pentateuch like that. If we go to Numbers chapter 25, verse 5, Ross.
All right. By the way, just a quick point: the word used there for kill is harag, but still, it means. I think Jeffrey just put smite with the intent to kill, basically.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one more time, Numbers what?
25, verse 5.
Okay.
Okay, so this is after the sin at Beit Peor, when they, joined with the women who were whoring and so on and so forth. Now, we do have that story in the Moses scroll as well. What we don't have, by the way, what we do have there is in the Moses scroll is that it tells us that God started a plague. Here in Numbers, a plague suddenly begins, and it tells us that the plague was checked in verse 8. And we go, well, what plague? Where did that come from? Well, the Moses scroll tells us that a plague had begun. In any case, the Lord said to Moses in verse 4, take all the ringleaders that have and have them publicly impaled before the Lord, so that the Lord's wrath may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to Israel's officials, each of you slay those of his men. Now, I think, if I remember correctly, I think it actually says each of you slay those his brothers who attached themselves to Baal Peor. Am I right about that? Do you have that there?
Yeah, to Baal Peor. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they did that and knocked them off. And then, of course, we have Pinchas who javelins Zimri and Omri together. And those who died were 24,000 in the plague, and so on and so forth. And then the plague was checked. But again, a commandment from God to blatantly disregard this particular commandment as it appears in the Moses scroll. So either one is right and the other is wrong, or both are wrong. But if we do understand the Moses scroll to be correct, this is a very problematic text if indeed God gave these directives. Ross, what's your
Yeah,
thoughts
just
there?
of course, I'm thinking of all sorts of things, but
Mm,
one thought that comes to mind is that it's quite complex when you look at in the biblical text all the different words that are used for taking life. You know, we've mentioned several of them tonight, and I think one of the things that also comes out of the text, which we shouldn't forget, is that it's life is presented as very valuable. It should be not only human life but animal life as well. You know,
mm,
it's very clearly articulated in the text that the taking of life is something not to be taken lightly. For instance, when we meet with the murder where Cain murders Abel, as we would define it in our understanding, God says literally that his blood cries from the ground, which
mm,
opened its mouth to receive it. So, you know, I think that a lot of times people they read these texts and we don't think about the severity. How many times have we watched the news and a tragedy is talked about on the news and we don't even, you know, it's getting to the point where you see so much of it, you don't even hardly check up. You just another person died, another person died, and
mm,
this is
mm.
really tragic, you
It
know.
is. It is. And just you mentioned Cain and Abel. That is a curious thing, by the way, that major narratives in the Pentateuch, certainly Genesis, include the idea of a brother conspiring to kill or indeed killing his fellow brother.
Yeah,
Cain and Abel, Esau and Jacob, there's certainly conspiring there. Joseph and his brothers, certainly conspiring there.
yeah.
These themes are fairly heavy in that regard, which I find very curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that in my view, what we have presented in the 10 words, uh, clearly the warning, the command, the charge is lo tirtzak, and I think tirtzak is to be translated as kill, but there are examples given in the Pentateuch and throughout the Hebrew Bible where is a person is told to take that person's life. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of times some of these things, you know, we don't do those anymore, and I think in places where they do, we tend to look at that and say, "Wow, you know, that's harsh." Think about the custom in some Arab nations where there are honor killings,
Mm,
and, you know, we look at that now in our Western sensibilities and we look at it and we go, huh, you know, that's a shame that they're killing that person for that crime. And you know what I always think? Well, I mean, in the Hebrew Bible, there are places where it says that that person should die. I'm not saying I think that they should, you understand,
mm, mhm,
but
mm,
think about some of these ritualistic killings that are done in what we would consider more primitive cultures.
mm,
It's sort of hard to separate some of those legal commands from what we read in the Pentateuch, and quite often people who believe in the Bible are a little bit, you know, kind of standoffish to these texts.
mm. Um, there are, other cultures that uphold a more black and white or a more stringent um, legal system where they enforce, capital punishment. I know Singapore is often cited, and the kind of order and safety that they have in the society as a result of that is evident. The more relaxed that one becomes with these sort of rules and punishments, the more dangerous a society becomes. But when it comes to the the death penalties that we read out, that you had us read out, some of them, are kind of questionable, and you can certainly have discussion about that as to whether that really is actually fair. I would highlight, just going back to the blessings and the curses, that when it comes to the curses of these particular and these are what we like to refer to as the consequences
Yeah.
of the cursing, right? This is fairly close in Deuteronomy, I think, as well as with the Shapira scroll. It says the Levites shall continue to read in an exalted voice, and they will say, and this obviously includes the commandment, you shall not kill your brother in his soul,
Yeah.
or the soul of your brother. It will be that if you do not listen to Elohim's voice to guard, to do all of the commandments and his statutes, then all of these curses will come upon you. You will be cursed in the city, you will be cursed in the field, your basket and your kneading trough will be cursed, the fruit of your womb and the fruit of the ground, the offspring of your herds, the young of your flock will be cursed. You will be cursed when you come in, you will be cursed when you go out. Elohim will give you to be smitten before your enemies. Elohim will send curses against all the work of your hands. And that's really the big one.
Yeah.
Elohim will make for you a horror, a proverb, and an insult among all the people of the earth. Elohim will restrain the heavens. The stranger in your midst will ascend higher and higher, and you will descend lower beneath. He will lend to you, but you will not lend to him. Elohim will cause you to perish, and he will destroy you from the face of the ground that you are to enter there to possess it. And then it ends there. It doesn't say, oh, and also, by the way, you'll be dead. It
Right.
says these are divinely imposed curses that will be imposed upon you if you do not follow this code of conduct. So what then of the death penalty? And I would go back to what I said earlier, that if there is a value, like a divine value placed upon your life, if you shall not kill your brother, well, then also your life is also of value. Everybody's life is of equal value. You can't just willy-nilly kill people for no good reason. You can't murder them. If that's the case, then you have the right to defend yourself. If someone is a menace to society, is a danger to others, maybe a danger to them, certainly to others, a danger to society, then it's upon society to do something about that. And sometimes if someone is just out of control, they've forfeited their right to live, and they need to be eradicated. If they just, like I say, if they're a danger. So I think that follows from the value of life. I think that that it gives individuals rights in regards to protecting their own life, and I think that we can make logical sense from that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I tell you, it's you brought up the incident at the subway or whatever, where this guy that
Daniel Penny.
he took the guy out. The ethical questions that have come out of this argument are bigger than we can solve in one night. But it's the Jewish law came up with certain responses too. That there's some things that you'd be better off to just die than to take someone else's life. And so we have to ask the question, where is that line? I can tell you now, just from as a person, I would defend my family. And if that resulted in a perpetrator who intended to kill my family, if it's
Yep.
between my family and that other person, I'm not going to wait around to listen to the story about how they had a tough childhood.
Exactly, and
You know?
that's exactly the point. It's your duty to do so
Yeah,
because your responsibility is the life of yourself and your family, and you have value upon your life and the life of your family. Therefore, you have the right to defend yourself, and that makes perfect sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
One comment I want to pick up, just because I see Trudeau Joe mention that
Yep. I was
this
just going to say,
person, yeah, said, let me pull it up on the screen. The
yeah.
Koran Tanakh sent to me when I ordered from that page disappointingly had the word Christian printed on it. So I decided to return it for a new version. Is the new translation as good for study? You must have gotten the wrong Bible. The Koran Tanakh is not at all a
Mm.
Christian translation. It
Oh,
is,
you know what? You know what he might be referring to?
yeah.
I'm going to take a guess. There was a copy of this one, which we also recommended, and it was put out in a nicely leather-bound edition
Oh,
by the.
it's the complete Jewish Bible, something totally different.
Mm,
It's by David Stern and someone else. If you're right, and that's what this person ordered.
no. It's this one here. Remember, you gave me a copy of this one with the leather-bound.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now that particular publication, which is still Oxford, I think, but it was also in conjunction with you got it there somewhere. Grab a copy.
Yeah, here it is right here. Oh, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is beautiful. Yeah.
I've got a copy of this. I love it. It's the same Bible. It's exactly the same, and it's got all the same notes. But somewhere there is it on the.
I can tell you, it said it was put out by Christian Book Distributors.
There you go. The
And
distributor. That's what it is.
yeah, so but it is a Jewish Bible, and the
Mm.
reason that a lot of us ordered this version is because now I know this might make some people mad. I am so sorry. This is my I'm sorry face. But Christians make better Bibles than Jews, meaning they bind them nicer. Now I have this Jewish Bible, and
I've got one of those.
it may be in fact what Trudeau Joe ordered.
It might be. Is that what it was? Oh, he's
Yeah.
saying no.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean,
Oh.
I'm sorry. You're talking to them, not me.
No, I'm looking at Trudeau. I'm just guessing, mate. I'm not sure if it's. It was the same book, just had American Jewish Christian Alliance printed on. Oh, I see. I don't know.
Yeah,
But don't judge a book by its cover, Trudeau. Come on now.
Hey, look, I
Yep.
see that we have a comment here that look at this. Jeff
Yeah.
says that he's looking forward to meeting us, and we are looking
It's
forward
not far
to meeting.
away, is it, Jeff? It's not far away at all. It's only a matter of months.
Look, I'm going to
People
put
can
that
still.
up.
Other people can still join us. Of course, there's still room on the Tanakh tour, not just the Egypt Jordan leg of the Tanakh tour, a little bit of room there, but also on the Israel leg of the Tanakh tour.
That's
You can do one, you can do the other, or you can do both. If you choose to do both, you will incur a $100 combination discount. This year's Tanakh tour, a beautiful thing, the ultimate Tanakh tour, bit of an Exodus flavor to an Exodus theme throughout the tour this year. And we are beginning in Egypt. We're doing lots of fun things. We're doing this for the first time. It's going to be incredible. And following on into Jordan. And what are we doing in Egypt now? All right, so now Ross has leaked the itinerary for Egypt and Jordan. Where can people find that?
Look, I'm going to pull that up right now, Jono, since you brought it up. And I am so proud of this because I went against instruction and
You leaked the top secret itinerary.
I did. Here is the link. On this link on my website, because Jono wouldn't put it on the Tanakh Tour website, I put this. Here we go. I'm going to paste it in the comments, and people can go there. Dave and Patty are going with us. Karen is going with us. Here, I'm going to pull it up on the screen. That's the link. RossKNichols.com/Israel-tours. And on that page, they look down and they're going to see, click here to get the itinerary, and you can read. Jono, in Egypt, not only will you see pyramids and Sphinx and all that cool stuff, we're going to take a 3-day, 3-night Nile cruise, stopping and looking at all kind of cool, Pharaoh type stuff. You get the picture. We're going to take 2 flights in country. We're going to fly. We're going to see traditional Mount Sinai. We're going to climb it in the morning together. And so we got to be in shape. This is going to be, it's going to be fun. But anyway,
awesome. Then we're crossing over the Gulf of Aqaba, or maybe we're going to go through Eilat.
It depends.
We'll figure it out, and end up in Jordan. We're going to go through Jordan. We're going to Wadi Rum, I think. We're going to Petra. We're going to Mount Nebo. We're going to a bunch of we're definitely going to the Wadi Mujib and talking about the Moses Scroll and so on and so forth. That's going to be great. And thanks to Dave and Patty, actually, helped us do the research for that.
Did the scouting missions with
we did the scouting mission with Dave and Patty.
Caves and all kind of cool stuff.
That was good fun. Are we going to Elephantine Island? I don't think we are. I don't think
someone, I think Patty asked that question too. And it seems that when I looked on the map of the Nile cruise, it's in the Nile. Elephantine Island is in the Nile. So I don't know that we stopped, but we're going to do some research. Let's let them know next week. We're going to do that.
And then after that, we are crossing over from Mount Nebo. Of course, we're going to go to Israel. Actually, we're going to cross a little further north towards Beit She'an.
Yep.
And then on to Tiberias and meet up with the rest of the tour there. And we are going to have a wonderful time in Israel. So this is what's happening anyhow. We kick off on the 31st of October in Cairo, and we finish in Israel on the 12th, I think. Is that right?
That's right.
No, on the 19th. On the
Oh,
19th.
yeah. We have a whole week
Mhm.
there.
We cross over on the 12th. So, dear viewers, we would love for you to come. There is still room, so absolutely. And if you're curious about the itinerary, the secret itinerary of Egypt and Jordan, you can find it on that website that Ross just brought up. Right. What else is news? Oh. How did now you finished Jeremiah? How did last Saturday go? What did you put out?
I did Following Jesus Out of Christianity.
Ooh,
And
going back in time.
and
Yeah.
that was it's been received pretty well, I would say. Quite a
Mm-hmm.
few viewers. It's certainly more than what we've seen in the past. I think it's over 2,500 now.
Mm.
And there's a lot of good feedback. People are writing, and I did that because so many people out there have indeed followed that same path. They
Mm.
began as Christians, and they literally worked themselves out of Christianity by reading the Bible.
Mm.
So I decided to redo the class that I originally did in 2009. And it's totally different. It's got some cool graphic elements from Seth. And so I was real pleased with it. Now, this week, and let
John
me
says
just
it was
say this,
excellent. Yeah.
this week, we're doing something a little bit different. And I'll just tell you that the title is God Forsaken, a King Like the Nations. And I'm really going to dig into the monarchy as it appears in the biblical text. So a bit challenging. And so I look forward to the feedback. And remember, now every Saturday after my class, I do a live Zoom. I mean, I'm right there in the class
You're there
with
for the
everybody.
Q&A.
And that's
Yep.
right. And we do a Q&A. So I invite people to join us. Same channel you're on right now, Ross K.
Mhm.
Nichols TV on
What time?
YouTube, 10:30 a.m. Central Time. So
There you go.
do it Saturday morning, and
Good stuff.
hopefully everybody will join us. So
There we go. All right. So are we done? Like, I know we're well over an hour.
oh yeah,
I think we've hit all the points.
yep. And next week
Hmm.
we're doing the
Death.
next word, and let's see, we did tonight we did kill /
Mhm.
murder, I guess you could say, and
Mhm.
then next week we're going to do adultery. Is
Oh,
that right?
adultery.
Adultery.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
I've just got the Shapira scroll in front of me, and you shall not commit adultery with a woman of your neighbor.
Uh,
Qualifiers, boys and girls. We're going to talk about that next week, I think. We'll
Yep.
let that.
Hey, join us next Thursday night, and members of the Patreon, the YouTube channel, can join us Wednesday night. So we
Ooh.
do a live Zoom call on Wednesday night too. So hopefully everybody will join us. If you don't get sick of hearing me ramble, and hey, I'm
Yeah,
here.
you want some personal time with Ross? Click that little QR code up in the corner of the screen and become a Patreon of Ross's channel, and you get all these little extra goodies. All right, boys and girls, we will be back
Join,
this time
join,
next week.
join the Tanakh tour, people. Come
Join
on,
the
you get
tonight.
FaceTime with us for 24 hours a day almost. I mean, we
Yeah.
hardly even sleep on that tour.
Hang on, wait. Patty says, what does she say? Do see now that it's defined as murder. Oh, okay. Fulfill. Yep. Yep. Good one, Patty. All right, you guys. Love you all. See you next week.
Hey, have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.